Welcome to the Stewart Squared podcast. We're going to talk about the browser, how the browser came around, because both of us right now in this current moment have just spent the last 10 minutes going back and forth trying to turn off things and do other things in order to make the browser work with Riverside. But not only Riverside, it's like all these things, and it's just so complex. And when are we going to get to a world where it's just we never see the complexity again?
You believe in your heart of hearts, because you're an iPhone user, that you don't see complexity on the iPhone?
No, I see complexity.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not the same. I mean, the browser is an app along with every other app, and the iPhone is a very tightly controlled operating environment. Um, the the even the Macintosh, but the PC even worse, is uncontrolled. App developers can do anything they want, including we're talking about Riverside Studio. They're choosing not to support Safari in their native Mac app, which is like really weird. And So I have to use the native Mac app. I can't use Safari, which is my browser, although you're used to using
Chrome.
Riverside Studio inside the Chrome browser. And So that's one level of complexity, is just the operating system and how much application developers can violate the rules and mess around and
Uh,
create inconsistency from one app to the next, and potentially even crash apps as a result. Um, the next level is um, in a web browser. There's no, how do I describe this? Every time you open a web browser window, you create an instance.
mm,
It's different on PCs and Macs, but so I don't know if I'm technically using the term instance
don't worry about it.
correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but what I'm trying to get at is that um, it's a much more unruly environment. So the way that developers in the web use memory, how they uh, how they interact with the machine, be wildly different, because it's a very loose standard HTTP with TCP/IP, et cetera, all of the protocols that we've talked about in the past, is a much less well-controlled environment. In fact, that's part of the whole design of it, is that you can drop a nuclear bomb and anybody that's nearby will lose their internet, not just physically, but from the EMP, and uh, but no one else will outside the blast range. Um, so the internet was designed to be continue operating even if it lost whole chunks of itself. Um, and that leads to an unruly environment because it's a very low-level protocol relative to APIs in an operating system, different levels of the operating system.
Brilliant. That gave me a lot more insight into what's going on. So the internet is this wild west, and now we'll go back into history because it's a wild west, but now it's less of a wild west because of Google and because of AWS and because of Meta and because of all of these walled gardens. So Chrome, when did Chrome start becoming an idea? And did people in the tech world think that it was crazy that Google was trying to own a browser after 10 years of a browser invention?
Uh, no, much more simple than that, which is that Google was jealous.
Uh-huh.
Google was mostly jealous of what the hell was the Windows browser called? Explorer,
Uh-huh.
because Microsoft owned Explorer, and they had an operating system, and they had all the apps. Right, so you can look back at it. Google's history is a period of time where they're trying to reproduce everything that Microsoft had, but theirs was all based on the cloud, I mean, remote operations. So they weren't really doing native apps unless they had to, particularly on the Mac. Um, so they developed, uh, actually bought word processor, which became Docs.
Oh,
I think they
interesting.
developed the spreadsheet themselves. I don't remember. They bought, I'm pretty sure they bought the slide maker.
Yeah.
So they were
Oh,
reproducing each of the apps. So they reproduced the browser.
so
It's not
Google is good at
reproduced, but
acquisitions.
oh yeah, they have a long history. Well, if Google has spent X billions of dollars, just say one, for argument's sake, buying companies, they've probably been successful in 10 or 15% of them. So that's not necessarily a bad track record. Some companies are better. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's better than 50%. So, in the context They spent a lot of money, like YouTube was their acquisition. That was a really good acquisition because they are now the dominant internet video streamer, and even bigger than Netflix. And uh, they developed Gmail themselves. I think they developed the spreadsheet online themselves, although it might have been a small acquisition. And, so there's a whole history there. And, when you start talking about how good companies are at acquiring other companies, it's a very interesting and broad topic.
So, and I just looked up when did Chrome get invented, and it was September 2nd, 2008 is released as a beta version. Initially, it was available only for Microsoft Windows users. And the development began in 2006, led by Sundar Pichai, who's now the CIO.
Oh, he was the product manager. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably got a place in his heart for it because Chrome really did become dominant. Right? Safari is on the Mac, but there's no Safari in any other machine that I know of.
So 2001 is where Google started to become popular, and by 2006 they were thinking, okay, let's go beat Microsoft at all the things it does, and let's buy this, let's develop this, and let's own the Chrome.
So let me give you a perspective there, because Google was funded in '99, and they broadened this availability. So in those 6+ years, the company made so goddamn much money. Their gross margin was like 80% on search, because all they had to do was make more machines to, store the data and do the search. Maybe is 80%. Who cares? Because they're making this ridiculous amount of money from people clicking on search, doing searches, and that was like pennies at once. Right? But trillions of pennies. So they were making so much money. It inevitably leads, if you're running Google, particularly if you're Larry and Sergey, to thinking, what are we going to do with all this money? One point of view might be, well, we need to spend some money before somebody figures out we're a monopoly on search. But also, if you kind of want to dominate the world, you want to do new stuff. This is exactly the same phenomena that led to at least the thought that OpenAI was going to develop a social network. Well, you've got to have a social network, right? You got to compete with Meta, you've got to have a social network. Google did the same thing. They introduced a social network, and whatever it was, I can't even remember what it's called. It was abject failure because they were doing it to compete, not to serve a particular need.
Google Plus. Is it Google Plus?
Google Plus. That's one of them.
Yeah.
There's a separate
They bought Orkut. They bought Orkut.
Yes. Yes.
And that was a Brazilian social media. I always loved living in Brazil in 2012 and just seeing how Brazilians approached social media so differently than us Anglos. But when I say Anglos, I mean all of the people in the United States, because we tend to bring people into our culture in the same way that Brazilians do. But Brazilians somehow are more social. And now I'm here in Argentina, and Argentines are closer to Brazilians in their social network, but it's much more social than us. And what I mean by social is just like connect with everyone, which in some ways they were allowed to get around some of the negative effects of social media. I'm still trying to work that one out on my head, is how Brazilians and Argentines are more anti-fragile as it comes to the political.
Anti-fragile. What do you mean by that?
So this is one of the gems I got from Nicholas Nassem Taleb, who's now blocked me on Twitter, as he does everyone who does it. He's pretty fragile. So we got fragility. That means you break under stress. Then you've got resilient, which means that you can handle stress. Anti-fragile, perfect example of this is Trump. You grow from stress. So the more people that try to take you down, the stronger you get. So it's different than from resilient. And so anti-fragile is a great way to think about the world, because it's just like, and I think Taleb came up with this, where it's like you basically, like you grow, like nobody can bring you down, like Trump. Like there's a whole bunch of other people who are anti-fragile. What do you think?
Musk,
exactly. Musk. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Except I just read an analysis of Musk's status as an entrepreneur, with reference to his political shenanigans.
Yep.
And they talked to one of his He's been married twice to one lady. They talked to the lady. The lady said, "Oh no, Elon Musk is one of the most emotional people I've ever seen, and he has the thinnest skin you can imagine. And
Yes.
so he's always reacting. That's why he can't let go of Trump. He's so pissed off."
Which you found out very clearly
Yeah. Well, yeah.
in 2012, 2015, 2017, somewhere where you complained
Whatever it
online.
was, that was
Yeah.
15. It was the introduction to Model X.
No, well, but I would say that even though he is emotionally reactive is the way that I would say it. He's very emotionally reactive, but so is Trump. I mean, Trump is also emotionally reactive. So
Yeah, that's true.
anti-fragility there's something else embedded in there where it's
Yeah.
like the conditions don't get to them. In they're somebody
It's like a surface thing. They're reacting to
yeah.
people saying stuff about him, but internally they're not referencing anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you watched that Neuralink uh, video that I sent you.
I
It's a
should go back.
1 hour summary
Yeah.
of the status of Neuralink.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, but
Yeah.
and it's really interesting to watch Musk because he's in his domain, right? And he's studied the brain. He knows a lot about it. He's hired incredible people. So you watch that 1 hour thing and you go, this guy absolutely knows what's going on, right? And then they're going to go from 7, what they call participants, that have taken the embedded Neuralink and to like hundreds, 2028. And you're sitting there going, like, first of all, man, this is still predicting when he finishes college. He's sticking stuff in people's brains. And he's totally confident. And he knows that he's talking about it. So nobody else keeps up with him. That's where I was amazed by that. Because I go, like, I've seen this before. I've seen Elon Musk do this before. He's going to do it with Neuralink. We're going to be running around with plugs.
Well, thank you for opening up that can of worms. So I just gave a presentation to the AI Whisperers on Thursday, and in this presentation, I pontificated on why it's really important that we all have our own LLM self-hosted on our Raspberry Pis with open source computers. Maybe Apple, maybe other things, but I'm now dead set on learning how to own the entire thing because that's coming. Neuralink is coming. And the idea of having Elon Musk, this incredibly emotionally reactive person who can't see who can see very far into the future on the potential for technology in terms of the base materialistic potential of all these things that technology can do, but has absolutely no clue as to what the effect of it is on human beings. Like I have no empathy.
No EQ. He's like 100
Yeah.
on the IQ and 0 on EQ.
And so the idea of him owning something that goes into my head or the people that I love's head is like a non-starter for me. It's absolutely 0%. It's happening. Yeah. But this is his great marketing insight is that he's doing it in terms of disabled people. Yeah. So if I were disabled, maybe I would do that right now. But
if you're quadriplegic, can you find a way to use a computer? Because quadriplegic means you can't use your hands by thinking it. And he does a demo on that video. It's pretty enlightening. So, he's kind of using him as guinea pigs, except they, fully accept the risk. And I think that if you're in trials, that's okay. But he's building the database, right? Just like he did with the electric car, right? He had to solve a lot of different problems: how to recharge it, how to make the batteries last, and he did it incrementally, starting with a sports car and then a sedan and a SUV. It's like, he worked his way through it over a fairly long period of time for somebody that's that focused in SpaceX.
What do you mean by building? He's building the database. Why is a database important for Neuralink?
Because the only way you can really understand the brain is by doing it. And so he's got 7 people who have these things implanted, so they're in there 24 hours a day and on all the time, sucking data out of those people's brains. That's not right. It's just measuring synapses and diodes that happen in it. But he's building a database, so he knows And this is why the video is so important to watch, is that there are different regions of the brain. People, generally speaking, know. And he's mapped the brain at a level of detail I don't think anybody else has, because each of those implants have, look at this tens, it might be hundreds of
Wow.
sensors, little
Whoa.
silvery things that go in and figure out what different, very specific regions of your brain are seeing.
Whoa. Whoa.
Oh. And
And
it's
so
input versus output, right? Right now it's output, because it's measuring what's going on in there so that you can tell the computer what to do without touching it. But the input will turn around eventually and it will modify your brain and improve it. It's just like sending people to Mars, and everybody should drive an electric vehicle. He just has these big ass objectives, but he knows what the hell he's talking about. It's really, really interesting. Twitter, I don't
okay.
think he actually knew what he got into, but I bet you he understands it really well now.
Yeah. There's a great theme there about humanity and how we just kind of step into these things like a nuclear bomb and just kind of figure it out on the way. But we haven't blown ourselves up yet, which was a huge huge fear that you grew up with. So I get what you mean by database now, and it ties in with a great presentation by Federico Lois, who presented at AI Whispers 2 weeks ago. And he basically convinced me of what a database is. Why do you need a database, and why do you need it inside of the enterprise? And it's to basically do what you're just talking about with the brain, but inside of the enterprise, map out all of these different things,
Mm-hmm.
get data on all. And that's what you mean by good IT. And we've talked about that with Apple having good IT, is because Tim Cook can know what's going on inside of the company the entire time. And this is really important for LLMs. Specifically, what Federico said was that you need to build logs of all of the different LLM prompts that the company is doing, because at some point, if you violate HIPAA or you violate regulations, there's going to be depositions. And you want to have as much of that information as possible, so when something goes wrong, there's a trail going all the way inside. What do you think?
So, there are different kinds of databases. Data storage is a higher level concept, that you have a data storage policy or architecture, because some data you have to get out really fast in real time. Some data just needs to be stored and referenced by something else. And then you need a canonical set of data that's absolute, that defines truth. And I think he was probably talking about data storage architecture. That's not a technical term. I just made that up. But it's a higher level thing than just storing the data. And so companies have already done this. They have they call them data lakes. There's this huge lake of data. And the data might come from your accounting system or from your manufacturing system or from your sales system. And it's incredibly difficult to do this because most companies use products from different vendors with different objectives. So if you use Salesforce versus, I don't know what the other CRMs are, they assume a certain way of looking at data. And so if you go out and you get another vendor, you look for vendors that they work with Salesforce or whatever. And there tends to be this constellation around core applications like database with CRM, manufacturing data, ERP, enterprise resources. And so each of these sets of data, when the company tries to integrate them, it's really a nightmare. That's why I'm so impressed with United Airlines. They do fall off. They can't keep track. In real time, they know where every one of their customers is, right? Which flight, which airport, or not traveling. They don't know what they're doing when they're out traveling, but while you're in the United States, they know exactly where you and your bags are, including whether you're in their customer loyalty. And so they're scanning you constantly, and they scan the bags at every point, so they have perfect real-time data. Unless something goes wrong, that's what gets little documented. Compared to American Airlines, when I came back from Ireland, sitting at DFW, and I'm looking at my phone, and it kept saying, "Oh, your flight was moved to gate 36." So I'd
Mm.
spend 20 minutes walking to gate 36, and then I would say, "Oh no, your flight's back at the original one." I went back and forth 3 times because they clearly didn't know which flight was actually going to fly from Dallas to Santa Fe. It's all their little airplanes. So they kept switching flights that they were predicting would fly to Santa Fe, but they didn't know for sure. So I walked back and forth 20 minutes each way to go to the gate that they predicted would be the gate that I would fly from. It's just a nightmare, and Delta's even worse than Americans. And you get to Aerolíneas Argentina, you have no idea. It's like they're still working the way that airlines worked like 15 years ago.
So I am on tomorrow. I'm going to teach people how to vectorize a database, to embed a bunch of things, and to do all these state of the art things because I want to get all of my podcast transcripts inside of a LLM. And so I'm going to teach my intern in front of a group of people how she can do that. And she's from Berkeley, so she's like studied all of these things at very high level or very low level. And so she's studying assembly, she's studying all this math, all these different things. Has never used Cursor until she came down to Argentina. And so we've been teaching her how to use Cursor. And on Monday, we're going to take all this and she's going to create this app that I need. Yeah.
Do you know what it means to vectorize a database?
Yes. Well, I know. No, I know it I know it at a very, very
Metal level.
very, very meta level. She actually has a better understanding of it. But the craziest thing with vibe coding is you don't need to know it. You just need to know the term vectorized database,
Right.
and the suppliers and the technology and all this different stuff. So, but I will try to answer that later. But I've come across the AI keeps on telling me that I need to use Prisma. Prisma is a modern ORM platform, an object relational mapping tool. And it's now told me that I need to go do this several times. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is that? And I have no idea what it is. Do you know what it is?
Uh, I can guess from the name. That's why I always pay attention to acronyms.
Yeah.
Object relational thing. So, relational database relates any one piece of data to every other piece of data. It's not quite accurate. And so this is a tool that would be able to kind of map your data independent of the database. I think that's kind of what I would head for. But,
So I'll go further into it. It's Node.js and TypeScript environments, also things that AI tells me that I should be using all the time. It is widely used with Postgres SQL, also something. This is actually what my programmer mentor guy is teaching me is that Postgres SQL, always use Postgres SQL. It does declarative data modeling. It does type safe queries. It does automatic migrations. Let's go into that one. Migrations.
well, I'll back up a little bit.
Yeah,
We
okay,
just
all
had
right,
a liquidity event because one of our companies specialized in Postgres.
Okay.
And a company called Snowflake, which is worth billions, bought our company, not
Whoa.
for billions, but for a good outcome. And because their competitor, I can't remember what company that was,
I'll find
had
it out.
bought a Postgres company. So in the database world, there's certain things you have to do to like be competitive. And anyway, so in our other database company, Aerospike, just introduced, well, in the last few months, vectorized databases. So I've been trying to figure out what the hell these things are.
Okay.
So go back to your question. I took a sidetrack there.
Well, no, the ORM. Well, there's migrations, but then you brought us back to the vectorized database. Migration.
You mentioned it's so hard to mention. It'll come back to me at some point. Some inappropriate time.
Okay, migrations and vectorized databases. Let's talk about migrations and databases. 1980s. We've talked about relational databases before, and relational databases seem. I get it now. Is that's why you have an ID for a database link is because it connects that ID with the other IDs. And now, yesterday, I got into the columns of the databases for my vectorized database. I've got chunking. This is a good one. This is related to your thing.
Good one.
Yeah, chunking is like you chunk the embeddings based on the sentence, based on the paragraph, based on the topic, and based on the entire transcript. And so this is a way of, like the conversation we're having now, there's all these words being thing. And so I have the full transcript, and then I'm going to chunk that full transcript into multiple layers, paragraph, sentence, topic, in this hierarchical thing. And so now I relate that to all the other podcasts I've done. But now I'm starting to get an understanding of how all these things. So relational databases allowed us to relate things. When did that happen? And how were you involved? How were you talking about it?
Right. So Oracle was generally speaking credited with innovation and gaining adoption for relational databases, which are the standard.
SQL?
No. SQL is standard query language. That's how you query a relational database. So an SQL program, which is kind of what your Uncle Joe did, is a way of developing applications in a database environment. And standard query language is how you retrieve the data from the database. Relational database management system, RDBMS. I can get back to it if I can get my accent straight. RDBMS is Relational Database Management Systems, and that was what Oracle introduced. Oracle was very successful in doing that, and some very high percentage of companies started using Oracle's database. On top of Oracle, RDBMS, they started developing applications like customer relationship management, human resource management. These are all things that were writing on top of data that they were putting into their relational database management. This was fine in the beginning. In the beginning, it was like late 90s, mid 90s, because big companies were achieving this level of database management inside of every one of their silos of data. And enterprises have not created a single environment for all of their applications. And that became the challenge in the thoughts.
I didn't understand what you just said.
So
Single application.
You got a database of all your employees. It contains all the information about the employee that you need to have, get paid, blah, 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 what level they're at. So you would have employee data stored in it, a relational database.
Yeah.
In the beginning, the companies would have to retrieve that data. They'd figure out their own way of doing it. So everybody did it differently until somebody came along. Now, Salesforce is most famous for customer relationship management because that's where it started. And of course, Mark Benioff used to work for Larry Ellison at Oracle.
Oh, interesting.
So as soon as Salesforce started to grow, Oracle had to have a CRM. And there were other CRMs. There were like 6 of them or 7 of them, which is kind of this whole pattern that happens in the tech business is somebody figures it out. They tend to be dominant. And then other people go, oh, well, I can do that. And they do it, and they do it differently. And so there's a number 1, number 2, and number 3. In fact, there's a historical one I'm forgetting right now, but it's just pinging at the edge of my head. And probably our listeners know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was a database company that started before Oracle. And so there's a whole history here that only part of which I know. But once you do that in a particular application area, well, then that employee data is useful for planning your buildings, to figuring out who's in the manufacturing part of it or who's in the sales. So what the company really wants doesn't generally speak doesn't actually understand this except to the degree that someone else does it successfully to integrate all of their data. And I'll come back to United. United has, where are their airplanes? What state are their airplanes in? Where are they matched up with gates? Gate management is a huge thing. And then, so you have employees all clustered around those different pieces of data. You have goddamn customers, right? They show up at the gate. Did you know they were going to do that? When they do show up, you have a seat for them. So there's seat management. So that, that is a huge number. And airlines are interesting because they're a real-time business. You got to actually know that the customer's on that plane and it's going to take them up and go somewhere. Because you're charging money. It's kind of more real-time than virtually anything else. Although FedEx is a real-time thing, UPS. And, so you real time. I'm fascinated by real time data because it puts such a high bar on performance in computing terms that real time is really important. And many people think of real time as like the little bit of software that's sitting on a machine in their factory, but that's just generally known as IoT. But that's real time while the machine's operating, but if the machine's not operating, it doesn't really matter. So it's like there's different definitions of real time.
So,
airlines are 24 hours a day, and that's what I find
yeah,
really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, because safety and people, car manufacturers probably as well. So what you just said brings up a very interesting point that you know a fair amount, and I'm going to ask you not to share any proprietary things about.
I never do.
Yeah, about Niantic and Meowwolf, who I believe have announced the thing, so we can talk about it. Yeah,
and it's been covered.
Yeah. So, and that's real time. I mean, I actually didn't read anything about it, but immediately once I saw them together, I know that it's in person mapping in an exhibit, right? Like that's what it is.
Yep. Meowwolf's actually doing that part.
Okay.
They're embedding sensors all over their exhibits so that they can track people's farms, because everybody has a farm that comes into an exhibit. So they don't have to bother putting a wristband on and attaching something to you. You're attached to your phone. And that's relatively sophisticated. Give Meow credit for that. That's not what Niantic is doing.
Whoa.
But Meow's only doing it now, so they're embedding it in the next exhibit, and they did a pretty good job in the last exhibit. The application, this is something that blew my mind back when I figured it out. The application that was most real time and most difficult was Facebook, because you would change your status. It would update instantly, and it would map to all of your followers, so that it would put it in your feed, all within microseconds. So with billions of people, they're supposed to have 2 billion people on there. So any one of those 2 billion people can do a status update, and the system has to figure out who gets the status update in the feed and which part of the feed goes into, and all that stuff. That's all happening in real time.
So
Google search is another real time app. So because when you do a search, it has to come back. And that was the magic of the original Google search.
So that relates back to Chrome, because Chrome, I believe that Facebook allows that, and Facebook is the least well-performing application of all the applications that I regularly use, and I think it's because they did that. They invented React in order to do that, but now it's really bad. It's really it takes me 20 seconds, 30 seconds to load Messenger, which it's crazy. What's going on there?
Here's a little side trip for you. Every time somebody tries to do something other people are doing already, like Messenger and Facebook, it was supposed to be like iMessage or like WhatsApp, and they already own WhatsApp. Because messaging is also a real-time application, right? When I send you a text, that should show up as fast as possible. And know where it came from, and present it to you correctly. That's a lot of real-time. Because Meta started with Facebook, they wanted to be competitive. That's part of why they bought WhatsApp, why they bought Instagram, to prevent other people from getting them. But then they introduced Messenger. They already had WhatsApp. They were doing messaging in Instagram. They needed to develop an architecture to do messaging across all of its applications. And that's where it started to stumble, because they didn't really understand what that meant, because WhatsApp already had one way of doing it, and Facebook had another way of doing it. How do you resolve the differences when they were developed like completely different programming in different environments? So I don't use Messenger. I refuse them. Facebook, if they're going to try to force you to use a different messaging system. That's my attitude. I already use iMessage. I'm perfectly happy with iMessage, and all the people I want to know are on iMessage.
I was off it for a while, but now I'm back on it.
It integrates much better with the underlying standard of RCS, or the rich communication system. Again, you're right. RCS is the upgrade from what's usually referred to as TXT, or basic testing,
So
which is just characters.
yeah, there's something that I wanted to talk about in that relation to Facebook. Really interesting point about the architecture. They needed to build an architecture that allowed them to do this thing, but they also tried to take over the world. Let's try to talk about it in terms of now they've realized, going back to that acquisition part, they've realized that they are not competitive in LLM. Jan LeCun was off with his world model, trying to build the next generation, which probably it's probably still good to start thinking about that. But they've now realized, okay, we dropped Llama 3. Llama 3, nobody's using it, doesn't
Four.
help. Llama
Llama
4?
4.
Okay.
Yes.
And so it's like, it's out there. We're not there anymore. Let's go buy everything that we can possibly buy.
That's at least the way it's been reported. And it certainly seems like they did have the list, which was a list of like 100 people they wanted to target for their super intelligence lab.
So what is going on there? Like what? So acquisition. Let's tie the last thing.
Well, this is a great example. How do you go get Alexander Wang and the other guy? They're co-CEOs. No, not Jan.
Oh,
not Jan. He's already. I think he left Facebook. I don't know, but he's doing deep research. So it's
who did you
whatever
mean?
it's called, whatever they call that group. It's AI. It's not DeepMind because that's Google's, but anyway.
Who do you mean by Alexander Wang, and who else?
Alexander Wang's the guy that he just bought half of
From Scale.
Scale.
Yeah.
Right. And Alexander Wang is now a Facebook employee.
Yep.
And there's another guy that's been hired, and they are co-managing the super intelligence lab.
Okay, I'll go find it out.
So all these questions you might ask: did Alexander with no E, DR at the end of Alexander, comes up right away if you skip the
Nat Friedman.
Nat Friedman is the other
Yep.
guy.
Yep.
So and there are all these other people from different companies, some from OpenAI, some from whatever. I don't know where they're coming from, and they're going to put this into a group that has cohesion about what its objective is, right? This does not happen magically, right?
Ooh.
Particularly when you have co-CEOs, because each of them bring their own thing to the party.
Wait, I got a question there. So I imagine that the reason why they're co-CEOs, they're partners, is because both of them have an ego thing. Well, actually, there's a good question.
Yeah.
Is it an ego thing?
Neither one's going to work for the other.
Yeah.
Yeah. Neither one of them is going to work for the other.
And this is But in a startup that works. In a startup, you want that. In a startup, you want that, right? In a startup,
you need to do one thing. The company needs to do. So maybe you have a team, maybe you have a CEO founder, but that person is the one that knows what the one thing is, and that has to happen. And then in a startup, of course, maybe you pick the wrong thing. Like a year later, you're going, so and startups are actually a constant process of pivoting.
But inside of a group, inside of a large behemoth, which is Meta, like you don't want two people who have large egos leading the group.
The instance of success in that scenario is pretty well. Netflix has co-CEOs and appear to be successful at it because one of them runs content, one runs the technology.
Got it.
And they kind of recognize they're supposed to get along with each other, but they each run their own domains. And Reed Hastings, is he still on the board? Yeah, I think he's chairman of the board. So he's still there to tell him to back off.
I love what I keep on getting from you probably my whole life is that there's this thing called business, that people are doing business and people are doing startups, and it's all within technology. And then you've got technology running, and technology is mechanistic. It's not, it's not human based. But whenever it involves business, there's always humans, and it always goes crazy.
Yeah, and this is what leads to kind of core belief that engineers don't make good CEOs.
Yeah,
because they're the ones solving the technical problems and focused on it, and not necessarily either have the personality or interest in dealing with all the other people around. And it is people. Business is just people getting together to do something. right? In the case of large companies, it's tens of thousands of people.
Mm,
Microsoft just laid off 9,000 people. That's 9,000 people, but it's only
mm,
2% of their
yeah,
workforce. It's,
yeah. So, how do you think about coordination costs? It's something Francis Pedrosa at Invisible would constantly talk about. I'm glad he did, because I learned why I
yeah,
don't like big companies is because coordination costs. There's just so many layers of coordination costs. What have you personally learned about it in your decade or your experience?
decades. One of the, if I mentioned the mythical man months,
Yeah, we've talked a bunch about that. Yep.
um,
Mhm.
that was written by a guy who took over an operating system at Microsoft. Excuse, IBM was developing with the System 360 in the 1960s. So this is before personal computers. This just sort of, he had a fundamental understanding of how programmers work, and we have talked about this. Is like
Yep.
if you're developing a piece of software, you have to communicate constantly in real time about that piece of software so that everybody's
Mm,
coordinated in developing it. And the problem IBM does, they just kept hiring more and more people. It was less and less coordinated. So he came up with the mythical man month, which was there would be a requirement to produce so much code per man month. That
yeah.
was the sort of statistical thing. And it broke down when you had too many people because there was too much time spent talking about it rather than just doing it. So he developed a way to manage small teams and coordinate them, and he saved IBM in the process.
Okay. And this, oh, interesting. So he was also a guy who helped. So it's Brooks
Fred
in
Brooks.
1975.
Yeah.
And so it leads to the next question. We'll end on this one, which is the AI is changing coordination costs. So I have a coordination cost with AI. The funniest part is that it lies to me. So do humans. Well, bullshit. It bullshits me. Humans also bullshit me, but in different ways, and with less ability to draw on the entire history and knowledge base of humankind. So there are still coordination costs, but they're very different, and I wonder how they'll affect.
Because the coordination costs are managed by the AI. Like people aren't, it's you can delegate it to the AI
Yep.
to some degree. And you're getting to I hate using this term, into a meta level thinking
Yeah.
about this,
Yeah.
but it's not meta Facebook, it's
Yeah.
meta. And the the scary thing is that people think the computers can deal with each other and coordinate all the activity without any human input.
Yeah.
Um, that's the scary scenario, so-called Terminator Skynet scenario, where computers don't need us anymore, and in fact they become violent and try to get rid of us.
Yeah.
I part of if you go watch Terminator again, which is probably useful, it's like they're robots, right? They've got all the robotic things worked out and all their ability to sense and see. Um, so we're not there yet, right? The AI can be embedded in a machine, and the AI and machine together can operate better than the human beings.
Mm,
Like that's not my lifetime,
mm.
but Elon Musk is working on that one too.
Well,
He's
I
got
mean,
those
and we've talked.
humanoid robots at Tesla.
And the whole reason he's putting chips inside a brain, his stated explicit reason is that he read a book called The Culture by some British some guy named Ian, and that says that this is the primary threat. So we need to merge with the AI with our brain chips in order to stop this coordination cost between machines that don't have our interest in favor. That's the whole alignment, all the sci-fi stuff. That all comes from that.
Yeah, you kind of wonder if he's put all this stuff into a single point of view.
Mm,
Like we have to become
mm.
multiplanetary. I got a
That's a good question.
rocket to,
Yeah.
but how does electricity deal with that? So, because electrical power in space is very weak, even if you have a lot of it. Anyway, so I wonder if he's kind of put this all together into what would look like a science fiction book right now, but maybe you could
Well, I
help
mean,
him write a book.
well, he's drawing from this guy Ian. I tried to read one of the books. I should go back and read it again. Ian, is a sci-fi author, wrote the book The Culture series, and it's hard to figure out which one to start with. But I started with one of them, got halfway through it. Not as good as as the cyberpunk books that usually draw me in. But yeah.
Yeah. So it's a Scottish author, Ian and Banks,
Yeah, that's it. Ian Banks. Yeah.
released between 87 and 2012. Why it stopped when he died.
Okay.
Yes, he died. He died in 2013. That's why he stopped.
Okay, well, we'll stop it there. Hopefully everybody is subscribed on YouTube and Spotify and tune in next week.